Probably the biggest new feature for developers in iOS 10 is the introduction of Siri Kit, which allows developers to integrate their apps directly with Siri on iOS. What's less well known is that this is actually quite restricted, and you won't be able to integrate absolutely all aspects of your app into Siri, only if your app does one of these things. So we can work with audio video calling, messaging, sending or receiving payments, searching photos, booking a ride, and managing workouts. I'm sure this list will continue to increase over time. If your app doesn't do any of these things, don't worry too much. But if it does, you're going to be able to offer your users a Siri integrated experience, which wasn't possible before iOS 10. So let's see how it works. We're going to start with a new project. I'll call it My Great App this time. So rather than Siri Kit demo or anything like that, because we're going to be using the phrase when we actually use Siri and see how it all works. So let's create a new target, just like with the messaging apps. And this is going to be an intents extension. So this allows your app to handle intents, which is essentially when Siri instructs your app to do something. So I'll just call this Siri Intents extension. And we get these two new folders, Siri Intents extension and Siri Intents extension UI. The UI part allows you to build mini view controllers which will appear in Siri if, for example, you need to ask the user for specific information. But we're going to be mostly working in the intent handler in the main Siri Intents extension folder. And here's where most of the integration is going to happen. You can see we've got quite a lot of demo code there for a workout app. Before we look at that in detail, let's run the app, see first off how we get it working. So the main thing to know is that you won't be able to run this unless you have an iOS device running iOS 10. So at the time of recording this video, that means that you'll need to be on the beta version of iOS 10. I've been on it for a few days now and it's pretty stable, but you do want to be careful installing that if you're installing it on your main device. So assuming you have a device running iOS 10, we're going to run first, not the extension, but the main app itself on the device. So let's set that up to run. And there it goes. So obviously we've just got our blank screen, which is our main storyboard over here. But running the app, we're now going to be able to go over to settings. So I'm going to go back to my home screen, click settings, and then again, you'll only see this option if you're on a real device running iOS 10. Tap Siri, and then scroll down, and you can see we've now got Git Demo, which I was playing with earlier, and My Great App. So now we can enable My Great App, and that will then enable how it works with Siri. So going back over to the intent extension, I can now say things like start my workout using My Great App. So let's give that a go. Running Siri on the device. Start my workout using My Great App. There we go. So it's picked up the app name. And now it will eventually jump over to the app itself. And there we go. So now we could have whatever code we wanted to start the workout and get the user moving. So let's see how that's done then. We have a class here called Intent Handler, which has a number of different handlers for the different types of intents that we can have here. So we've got our general in extension for all intents. Then we've got our in start workout intent handling, pause workout intent handling, etc., etc. So we've got a separate intent handler for each different type of thing that the user might say. Then we've got our general handler, which will be called every time any of these intents arises. And then we've got some specific methods, which I'll look at in a little bit of detail for each of those different types of intent. So here we've got our start workout intent, and this one is open-ended in that the user doesn't need to specify any information. They're not starting a call with anyone, so they don't need to specify who they want to call or how they want to call them. So it's just a straightforward generate a success and then send that success back to Siri. And now there are some more specific methods for goals within the workouts. So if you do have a workout app, these will be particularly useful, but otherwise probably not so much. So we've got a goal value of 5, whatever that means within your app here. Here we're specifying the unit type that we're working with in terms of the time of the workout. So in this case, it's minutes. We've got a location type, so specifying where you're working out. So here it's just fixed to an indoor workout. We can also specify a workout name. So here we're looking for the phrase lat pull down. And you can see we've got a pronunciation hint as well, which might be useful for phrases that Siri might find difficult to understand. And then we just check that we have all the information that we need and then respond, in this case, ready to go for the workout. Then we specify what we're actually going to do, got all the information that we need, and essentially here, the thing that we do is continue in the app. So that's why it jumped over to the app itself to begin the workout. And that's actually what each of these do. So here we're now sending user activity that we want to pause the workout, and that will then load up the app because we've got continue in app here, but sending the user activity pause so that the app can then deal with that and pause the workout. Similarly for resume workout and cancel workout, and indeed end workout as well. So in each case here, we're jumping over to the app and we're sending a bit of information which either cancels or resumes or ends or indeed starts the workout. So that's how the workout side of things work. To help make it all a little bit clearer though, I'm going to break this down and we're going to create the bare bones of a messaging integration with Siri. Obviously we don't have a real messaging app, so we're not going to be setting up a real messaging system, but we're going to see how we do the Siri integration side of things if we did have a messaging app. So let's get rid of all of those methods because we don't need those because we're not creating a workout app anymore. And then we're going to leave IN extension, but we're going to get rid of all the rest like that. And we want to create a messaging extension. So we're going to use in send message intent. I don't actually want response. I want handling. There we go. And that will give us an error because we need some extra methods for in send message intent handling. If we command click on in send message intent handling, we can see what those methods are. So you can see we've got a handle method which actually sends the message when we've got all the information that we need. We've got a confirm method which makes sure that we've got all the user data and comes back to Siri if there's anything else that we need. We've got a resolve recipients method to make sure that we understand which recipient we want to send our message to. Resolve content to make sure we know what the content of the message is. We may have a group that we want to send this message to, and again, we want to resolve that. And the service name, so the type of message that we're going to send if we need that, and also resolve the sender. In some cases, that might not be obvious, depending on how our app works. So to give you just an idea really how this all fits together, we're going to implement a couple of these methods. So first, we're going to resolve content. So let's go back over to our intent handler.swift and resolve content. There we go. So what we're going to do here is make sure that the user has specified what they want to be the content of the message. And we get the content of the message from this intent variable here. And we use intent.content to get the content. So I'll use if let content equals intent.content. And first off, we'll look at what happens if we don't have any content. So if we don't, we're going to create a response for Siri, which is going to be an in string resolution result. And it's going to be needs value. So what we're saying here is that we need some content. We can't do anything with it unless we know what the content of the message is. And then we essentially complete with that response. So completion with the response we just created. Okay, so if we do have some content, all I'm going to do here is print it to the console. So content, and then I'll use backslash and parentheses with the content variable inside, and then we'll respond positively to Siri saying that we've got what we need, all is well. So this time we're going to have a response which will be an in string resolution result, and this is going to be a success. And we're going to return that content there. So that tells Siri that we've checked the content, we've made sure that it's in a format that we need, and we've returned it in that particular format. So if we wanted for some reason to edit the content each time the user sends it, we could do that there. So now we can return that, and Siri will then know not only that we need some content, but also it will know that we've checked the content and made sure that it's all right, and then it can display that to the user. Okay, let's go back over with a control click to our send message intent handling protocol, and then copy these two. Well, in fact, I'm going to use the auto predict. So we've got handle and confirm for send message. So let's bring in confirm first. There we go. And while I remember what it is, we'll bring in handle as well. And you can see now we've lost our error message there because we've got the methods that are required. So in the confirm method, this is what will be called when Siri displays a message saying, are you sure you want to send this message? And then the user says yes. Then we'll call this message. So a common thing that we might want to do here is to check whether the user is logged in. We don't want them sending messages if they're not logged in. So I'm just going to cheat here and say is logged in equals true. But we should have a method that links back to our app and checks, perhaps using parse server, for example, if the user is logged in. And then we can check if they are. Then we'll return to Siri that we're good to send the message and all is well. So we could do that using completion, and then this time I'm going to create an in send message intent response, which is going to have a code and some user activity. So the code here is success because all is well, and we don't need any user activity. So we can just put nil there. If they're not logged in, then this time I'm going to send a similar message, but the code is going to be, and you can see we've got failure there and also failure requiring app launch. And I'm going to go for that one so that the user can go over and be redirected to the app and then log themselves in. And again, we don't need any user activity. And I could do with an extra parenthesis there as well. So you could do any other checks that you might need to do there, but the checking that the user is logged in is kind of the standard expected one. And then finally, the handle method is where you actually send the message. So if you were using pass server, you might upload it to pass or do whatever app logic you have to send the message. Okay. And we're just getting a little warning here because this line will never be executed. That's true because we've set isLoggedIn equals true. But of course, that's only temporary for this particular demo. All right, so let's bring in our phone screen. And first off, before running this app, let's just see what happens if I try to send a message with my great app before having run this code. Send message with my great app. So you can see there that we have an understanding of what we're trying to do, but because we haven't implemented the messaging system as yet, then Siri won't allow us to do that. So one final thing we'll need to do before we actually run this is jump over to info.plist and add the intent that we need. So if you look, we've got an NS extension dictionary there, and then NS extension attributes, and then intents supported. So at the moment we've got all the workout ones, which we actually no longer need. I'm just going to add in an extra one, which is going to be in send message intent. There we go. So now let's run this, and I'm going to run the Siri extension on my device. And again, it doesn't matter which application I choose, but I might as well choose Siri because then I'll be up and running straight away. So let's then have a look and see if this works as expected. So the main thing that we want to see is that we're able to launch a message. Send message to Rob Percival with my great app, hi there.
Here's your my great app message, ready to send it code one.
And then that final stage doesn't work because we're not actually going to send the message, but you can see we got the content here. So that's where we would save that somewhere in our app to upload it. And we could add any amount of logic there to make sure that the message was of the format that we need, as was the recipient. Just quickly to show you, if we turn isLoggedIn equal false, and then we run that again, this time we will see that instead of attempting to send the message, it will redirect to the app, which of course in our case is just a blank screen, but in a real situation would allow the user to log in and then they can go back and attempt to send the message again. So here we go. Send message to Rob Percival with my great app, hello there.
Sorry, you'll need to continue in the app.
So there we go. We've got our error, which will then encourage the user to go and log in the app. And there we go. So there's obviously a huge amount more you can do with Siri Kit, specifically investigating these different options, but they all use that same basic idea of having intents, and then each intent has its own specific set of methods that you can use. And in fact, you can find all of those in the Siri Kit programming guide if you really want to take this further. Wonderful. So Siri Kit is definitely a big step forward for developers in iOS 10, and I hope you have fun with it, and I look forward to seeing what you build with it.